Rachel Banks is dead. The papers will make it sound like I killed her.
And between protection of national security, obviously the government's need to obtain intelligence data, and the protection of civil liberties, particularly the sanctity of my home. You've got no right to come into my home.
This video documentary will take you deep into my life, and there will be things that I'm not proud of or recommend anyone else to do. But because of my government and others have taken my life apart in bits, only to replace chunks of my life history with accusations and different storylines to match the image that they have created to the world of who I supposedly am. And this image, which have been created and is well known across the globe, is the image of the so-called it. And it is merely a fictional character which is being broadcasted worldwide through a system that not many people knew existed for not that long ago. But because I, Stephen Bell, has been labelled with this constant branding, I'm associated with these monsters that they have created, and therefore I am hated and alienated from the rest of the society for what other people and government agencies are fabricating each and every day, only afterwards to say that everything they are showing you and telling you is me, and you need to hate me for it, and support and help them to have me taken care of in one way or the other. Because they right from the get-go have used a classic technique which is known as problem, reaction, solution, where they are constantly creating the very many different problems that occur on a regular basis. Fortunately, the most serious and biggest problems that they create are mostly created on a virtual platform, which means that there are not so many victims as there otherwise would have been. But nonetheless, if people's belief systems believe the horrendous and atrocious acts of perverted lunacy, then this has the same effect as a real-life act would have caused. So therefore, they have their justifications for having this ongoing human experimentation with electromagnetic and neurological weaponry, and the masses of people who are being normalized and demoralized to think public torture and endless sexual harassment campaigns is a good and funny thing to be entertained with. So much so that people are lining up to participate in the IT concept setup games, which they, the fraudulent cunts, are pronouncing and calling for publicly. This fact is increasing daily because of the pressure that I have been able to apply, and obviously the major attention they themselves are causing by using all these different extrajudicial methods of persecution towards me, a law-abiding citizen fighting only for my rights and freedoms, so that I will not continuously be falsely accused of heinous accusations of paedophilia to the world. So therefore I have been struggling the past 8 months to find as many possible records of myself within the different authorities that may have had information on me, and this information I will bring forth today in this video to show and prove that all their accusations have been false and fraudulent, merely a method for justifying themselves. This will give you an insight of my life which under normal circumstances I would never bring forward like the way I'm going to. But because of the way they have set up the IT concept publicly worldwide, this is the only possible way to let the truth be known to as many people as possible, because I have been denied all my human and legal rights, so this will never see a day in court unless they are forced to by the public's ability to pressurise not only the Danish government but also the English government and who else may be involved. Let me explain how and what you should be looking out for in this video to make the connections necessary to understand what they have done to make this look as realistic as possible. They have taken given facts out of journal reports to make them elements in their different stories and virtual movies, which most likely most of you have witnessed yourselves. I will obviously point out the elements from the different stories underway to the best of my ability, because I have not been told the specifics of each crime that I'm accused. This has been a strategical move from their part to block me from finding out the information that I would have been able to use in my defence. But something they didn't anticipate from the get-go is no matter how dictatorial these people are and have been, things will always slip out when you tell the world the information that they have been giving people. Therefore, I'm able to puzzle together the different accusations and see how they correlate with the elements from my journal reports, not only from the police but local authorities of different sorts as well. All the way back to year 1999, all the way to the present date, 2013. This will give you an insight of the magnitude of the corruption and the planning and the architecture of these people, who are using millions of taxpayers' money on human experimentation and technological development and introduction of surveillance and police states, all under false pretenses. These false pretenses will be exposed in this video. Let's start from the beginning. The first journal reports are from local authorities from Farsu, year 2001 and 2002, where I was institutionalized in June 2002. As a kid, because of conflicts at home with my stepfather and escalating drug use, my mother had given her custody over to something called Sun Garden, which is an institution for troubled youths who were heading towards crime. And this was done behind my back, which was something I didn't agree with. But anyway, the journal reports from this institutionalization will show you the reasons why I was institutionalized, and it will also show you that they have collected all the information on me all the way back to 1999 and until 2002, which is common procedure in any institutionalization of any kind, from schools to doctors, local authorities from that district, not to mention my mother, who has supported and represented all their different lies and fabrications that they have propagandized throughout the world through this system, which has been introduced into the civilian world under false pretenses and malicious intent. So this is key information that will not only support and prove my innocence on these matters, but maybe more importantly will also show the world the capabilities and means of the intelligence services of the Western world, because what they have fabricated has been so realistic, it's had the whole world's attention and support for 3 years now, and all of it has been a lie and manipulation of your belief system. This has never been about me and their so-called accusations. That has merely been the distraction and the false grounds that they have been giving you for the existence of this system, and the it concepts had your full attention. But let's get back to the false grounds and their accusations. Only then will you understand the magnitude of what is going on and how many people are being deceived throughout the world. 1999, I was at secondary school in the 8th grade. Danish grades are different to UK, US. That's how far back I've been able to track myself through journal reports through a law called Public of Information Act, where the school has transferred their reports to the Sun Garden, the institution for troubled youths, with nothing more to say than I had been problematic. And if you compare that to the stories and fabrications that they have shown and told you, then there are some great big holes that don't fit together, and that's just one aspect. Next will be the stories and fabrications that they have made with the fictitious me of my stay at 2 different boarding schools in the 9th grade, where I was chucked out of the first one called Ringkøbing Boarding School after just 2 months. The journal reports will show that I was chucked out because of subordination problems. I would personally call it causing trouble, but nonetheless I was chucked out. Second boarding school I was at was called Holbæk Boarding School, where I was also kicked out, now because of smoking weed just days before my exam. And if you remember, they have made a big deal out of this, saying that I had been chucked out in one or both places because of sexual crimes. And they have not only told you this, they have created virtual movie fabrications of the given accusation, which they have accused me of, and have told you again and again that you need to believe in the things they show you. But strangely again, their stories and movie fabrications don't match the journal reports, written by staff long before there was any plans of the IT concept. And these journals have been sent to different authorities, therefore being available for them, the fraudulent cunts, to examine and analyse the given information, so they could use the elements of truth in their storyline. That way they made their fabrications look that more realistic, and my whereabouts would match their storylines. That's how they have managed to get so many people to swallow the bait hook, line and sinker. So much of their crystal ball wisdom has not been from their technological aspects at all, but has been from the massive amount of records kept within authorities, as you will be able to see throughout this video, they have simply just manipulated and edited my life story as a rewrite to match their image of the fictional character. Let's move on. As I told you, I was kicked out of the second boarding school just days before the exam, which leaves a tiny space which will also be covered through the same remarks from the school from the 8th grade, because the school that I took the exams in was exactly the same place, just 9th grade instead of 8th. From there, I started business school in year 2001 in a town called Ars, where I was for half a year or so. That's not really the important part, but for you to get the full insight, you have to be aware of the details surrounding the different time periods. And in this time period, they have told and shown you that I lived at the school home, which is in connection to the business school, which I have never lived at or stayed at this school home. But because the journal reports alludes to this possibility for me at that time, they have made their fabrications as certainties, or as they like to call it, reconstructions of real life scenarios. And they didn't just tell and show you that I lived at this school home in Oz, but they made their virtual reality creations of sexual crimes committed towards other people, and I was supposedly the abuser. But in real life I didn't even live there. They have just read the journal reports and made the assumption that I lived there in year 2002. But in matter of fact, I live with my mother, as you will be able to see in this residence certificates, which is something that you wouldn't think intelligence services, with all their resources and technological aspects, would make mistakes like that. But because they have been so arrogant and delusional in their way of doing things, they never thought that I was going to be able to withstand the immense pressure of being harassed and tortured 24 hours a day in the first year and a half to 2 years. They are probably so far out in their sick and perverted minds that they never thought that I was going to work out their different stories, and nevertheless find all the necessary documentation to prove their stories are fabricated. See, now things suddenly becomes a lot clearer, and as I said, I was institutionalized in the beginning of June 2002. And just a few weeks before I was institutionalized, I attempted to steal a car, which is something the journal report also reflects. And to move on swiftly, they have also told you that I supposedly raped one of the staff from this institution, but none of the journal reports from this institution or the police records give you any indication of me ever even being suspected for sex crimes of any kind. But they still want you to believe that all these different accusations have occurred in real life. But they have never had a victim or witness come forward to make a statement. They keep giving you and me the same explanations, that no one is willing to come forward, and you still need to believe in them, even though there is so much evidence that clearly proves otherwise. After 2 months at this institution, I moved to England first time around in August 2002 for 1 year, and I was back in Denmark in June 2003. I don't know if they have made any fabrications of any kind in this time period, but if they have, I can pretty much do the same thing as I have done until now, because of the regular corresponding between my dad and his family to the institution Sun Garden. There has never been any mention either. The only thing that has been mentioned is what actually occurred on a regular basis, and that is the conflicts between me and them. And I think that should cover the first part of this documentation presentation. Next part will be police records, court judgments and warrants.
The greatest fear that I have regarding the outcome for America of these disclosures is that nothing will change. People will see in the media all of these disclosures. They'll know the lengths that the government is going to grant themselves powers unilaterally to create greater control over American society and global society. But they won't be willing to take the risks necessarily to stand up and fight to change things, to force their representatives to actually take a stand in their interests. And the months ahead, the years ahead, it's only going to get worse until eventually there will be a time where policies will change, because the only thing that restricts the activities of the surveillance state are policy. Even our agreements with other sovereign governments, we consider that to be a stipulation of policy rather than a stipulation of law. And because of that, a new leader will be elected. They'll flip the switch, say that because of the crisis, because of the dangers that we face in the world, some new and unpredicted threat, we need more authority, we need more power, and there will be nothing the people can do at that point to oppose it, and it'll be turnkey tyranny.
Before we get started with police records and court judgments and warrants, I'd like to make it absolutely clear what I have sought Freedom of Information Act in. To give you a full in-depth into the information that I have been able to gain access to, and also the corresponding between me and the authorities under which this has been granted, which are North Jutland Police Chief Prosecutor and the District Attorney General in Viborg and the South Jutland Police Prosecutor's Office. But as I said in the last part of this video documentation, that it has been a major struggle for me to gain access into these journals and the information, which under the law anybody has the right to be made aware of this information which is around the person, as long as there's not pending any investigation on oneself. So they have had a hard time coming up with excuses for not letting me use my rights, which in the end of the day has underlined the facts in their allegations against me, because they have had to grant me access to this information and the journals in the end, because there is not pending any investigation on me, so they have not been able to deny me my rights blatantly. So they have tried to stonewall me for as long as they possibly could without making more commotion than the original information would have done. So this way I have found out they are far more willing to deny me my rights than letting me and the world see the information which they have used elements of in their lies and fabrications. Therefore they have gone to great lengths to block me from getting this information out there for you to see for yourself through their own documentation. So this has really backlash for them, because now they have not only had to grant me this access, but have also had to reply in my letters expressing the circumstances of this situation with legal issues regarding framing a person and denying the person his rights to defend himself under the law and ultimately in a court of justice. I have expressed this to the highest authorities possible, and they have had to reply, as I said, and these replies have been so short and limited, it really just points out the fact that all their allegations have absolutely no legal representation or are official charges when it comes to I having an opportunity to expose and fight them on a legal playing field. Because if that was the case, then I would be immediately called in for questioning because of the seriousness of the statements. They have principal obligations to investigate the circumstances, which I have stressed in great detail. And since they obviously are not willing to follow the legal principles under the law, then they rely on other issues for getting rid of me, which I will get into later on in this video. But let's start with the letters to and from the Attorney General, which I wrote because of North Jutland Police originally denying my request for Freedom of Information Act back in 2012, which I therefore complained to the Attorney General, which ultimately could not deny me my request, because there is no legal grounds for them to do so. But the decision has for me taken months to get, which under normal circumstances would most likely not have been decided by the Attorney General, because the nature of the information I'm requesting is not secretive in any way, shape or form. It's merely normal procedure documentation of the given situation, which you are going to be able to see here, and I have made full translations of the most important documents in English, so most people will be able to understand it and read it for yourselves. The first letter is from the Attorney General, and it's dated 22nd of February 2013, and in this letter you'll be able to see when I have complained over North Jutland Police decision not to grant me access. You will also be able to see that I have applied access to the police records in year 2007, which they deliberately understood as from 2007 to the present date, but I suppose that comes in my favour now. This request will be extended in a later letter, The second letter is from me to the Attorney General, which is from 25th of February 2013, where I expressed that certain knowledge had come to my attention regarding their accusations of sex crimes, which some of them had supposedly been committed in this time period from year 2000 until year 2005. And if you recollect, the fraudulent cunts have made some of their fabrications as having taken place in some of these years. So I therefore extended my Apply for Freedom of Information Act to also get access to files, if there were any, in these years, which the District Attorney did not want to comment on the specifics of these allegations that I have found more details on, but she just passed the message along to North Jutland Police for them to decide in the first instance if they were to grant me this extended request. I also asked the Attorney General if she could let me know if there have ever been any police reports or if there have ever been any suspicion to me for sex crimes, and if she could give me any documentation on this question, which she also ignored on most parts. She wrote, if such suspicion or report has been made, it will be within the police, without mentioning a word about the allegation categorisation, if you will. And even though the Attorney General forwarded my letter from 25th of February 2013, I did not hear anything from North Jutland Police other than the extended access had been granted, no mention of the allegations which I wrote to the Attorney General, and no documentation on if I have ever been under suspicion or if there have been made police reports for sex crimes. I therefore wrote to the Chief Prosecutor North Jutland Police on 13th of March 2013, 2 days after receiving the letter granting me the extended access, where I wrote exactly the same as I did to the Attorney General, pointing out that she had forwarded the letter from 25th of February and asked him if he could let me know and give me some documentation if there have ever been any suspicion or police reports were made regarding sex crimes, which he replied on the 14th of March saying that there has never been any pending cases against me regarding sex crimes, and he also understood this as I no longer wanted the access to the police records for a time period of 2000 until 2009, which clearly was done to prevent me from being able to prove my innocence on these matters, which obviously is a wrongdoing, and ultimately he decided to make a decision on my behalf, which obviously is not in my best interest. And he also wrote that he was going to make a copy of the letter that I had received and a copy of my letter, and he was going to send them to the General Attorney in Viborg, and that is where I expressed these issues to in writing in the first place, regarding their allegations of sex crimes. So this way you can safely conclude that no one is really willing to fulfill their legal obligations, but instead keep passing the responsibility to one another for something a fourth party is setting up over a classified project and system. I therefore wrote yet another letter to the Chief Prosecutor on 18th of March 2013, where I complained about how he could misinterpret my otherwise straightforward request and how I keep getting the same incompetent answers back from the specifications of my requests. And I go on to say that I'm very sure that these allegations will not be able to be found in the police records. But for me to make this absolutely clear, I'm seeking this access to eliminate possibilities of any such thing. And I point out the fact that I haven't changed anything in my request at all. All that has changed is that I asked for documentation, which I have done now to both you, the Chief Prosecutor, and the Attorney General. And I hope this won't become a problem, because it's my right to be made aware of this information under the Criminal Procedure Law, paragraph 729D. Which the Chief Prosecutor replied to the 21st of March 2013, saying nothing more than I was still interested in gaining access to the police records mentioned earlier. Nothing resembling a sorry or I misunderstood you, what you would normally expect when someone has done a wrongdoing by mistake, which was so clear to see that this wasn't, and absolutely not in my interest. And by just ignoring my complaint, it goes to show their tactics of trying to do damage, and when it doesn't work out the way they plan, they just ignore their own attempts to damage me by using their status. And these are not small irrelevant issues, but major serious allegations of paedophilia, which are being given to the world to justify their project. It also says in this reply letter that I can expect a month before the files were found, which was the exact same time period given the last letter 10 days before. but this is something that will be explained later on. Since this time period became overdue, I made inquiries to see when these files would be available for me to see, and I kept getting the same answer, so I therefore took it to the next level and made a complaint to the Chief of Police in North Jutland, first of all with a phone call, where I was told to put it in writing, which I therefore did on the 14th of May 2013, where I made a full statement regarding not only the time overdue and the incompetence of North Jutland Police prosecutor, but more importantly their allegations of sex crimes and how these accusations of paedophilia were and are being made publicly and officially, and have been since January 2011, where I also go into great detail on the legal issues concerning their allegation, given as if they were charges that I have been made aware of, and not only that, as if a court of law had judged me guilty for their accusations, which none of these normal procedures has happened in the IT concept, which I therefore point out in this letter, that these accusations of sex crimes will most likely not be able to be found in the police records, and therefore there can be no truth to these allegations, and on that background it's easy to come to the conclusion that these serious allegations are being given to justify the situation around me. And if it is as I foresee, then there is talk of false allegations, and that is a criminal offence, and in this case undoubtedly aggravated circumstances, because it has all been publicised. And I also say that you will most likely deny any knowledge of any such thing, but that is something that also proves my side of the story and ultimately my innocence. But you can read these letters for yourself and make your own conclusions, and if you really think there is any truth to these justifications or there is something completely else going on. I received a reply letter from the Chief Prosecutor of North Jutland Police on the 17th of May 2013, saying that all the files had been sent to South Jutland Police and I could arrange a time to view these files by calling the prosecutor's office, where it's also written in the letter that the prosecutor had read my letter from the 14th of May 2013 and didn't give him any reason to comment other than this one here. There is not, and there have never been, any cases against you regarding sexual criminal offences. And that is something that goes to prove that something very corrupt and illegal is going on, and so many people around the world are being deceived and manipulated to think otherwise. But what is really noticeable, and where they often fail, is their reluctance to respond directly to me and my statements, which also proves that they do not want this to be able to be fought on a platform where it can be enlightened and investigated properly, because then they cannot edit and manipulate the different circumstances, and ultimately that means they can't control the outcome, and that's somewhere they don't want to be. Then they can no longer just use their technological aspects to lie and cheat and fabricate their way through everything. Let's take a closer look at some of these technological aspects while I explain how hard they have made it for me to get something that I have not only been granted from a Chief Prosecutor but also from Attorney General for both these districts. I have now confirmation that these files that you have been able to see a short clip of in this video were received at South Jutland Police on the 21st of May 2013. They have lied about this for a week before acknowledging they have received them on the 21st of May. This lie has been said by countless of people within the South Jutland Police Department, from prosecutors to Chief Prosecutor and a person from Management Department, all under orders from the fraudulent cunts, because they needed to create more and newer fabrications to essentially cover up their previous fabrications, which were going to be exposed by me and the world seeing these documents, and being able to puzzle together the different elements from real situations, which they have used and rewritten in their fabrications, which they have shown to the world as evidence for their accusations of different kinds. So their way of justifying themselves has been and still is to create these diabolical fictitious virtual movies, thereafter blaming me for what they are fabricating. Let's take a look at some of these lies and contradictions. Obviously I have made countless of phone calls and there's just not enough time to present all of them for you. So I have taken the most hideous and the most important in that respect of them openly lying to me. The first call is to the Chief Prosecutor in South Jutland Police, Sten Silberg Thomsen. where he's acting as if he didn't know who I was or having received these files, where it's later revealed that he received these files on the 21st of May 2013. This call is translated with English subtitles. Jeg skulle tale med en Sten Silberg Thomsen.
Ja. Et øjeblik.
Tak. Ja, der er ikke nogen, der tog telefonen.
Nej, det var Thomas Silberg, jeg kan godt se det. De skulle være til 16. Vil du have et tjenestemobilnummer? Eller skal jeg prøve at ringe på den?
Jamen, du må gerne stille mig videre da.
Jamen, jeg er med på at ringe op, så lige et øjeblik.
Okay, tak.
Det er Thomsen.
Jo, goddag, du taler med Steven Bell.
Jo.
Jeg har, fået besked på, at du har fået modtaget nogle sagsakter fra en Søren Gade, Nordjyllands politi.
Det har jeg ikke, for jeg har ikke været på arbejde i nogle dage.
Nå, okay.
Og jeg kommer først på arbejde på mandag, skal jeg sige det.
Okay, men kan du fortælle mig, hvem jeg kan snakke med i anklagemyndigheden så?
Jamen, så skal du lige fortælle om, hvad jeg vedrører.
Jamen, det vedrører, at jeg har fået tilsendt nogle sagsakter fra Nordjyllands politi, som jeg får mulighed for at gennemse. Og af en eller anden grund, så skulle de være sendt til dig. Det er i hvert fald dit navn, jeg har fået af dem.
Ja, du bliver nødt til at uddybe, hvad er det, ringer du i? Altså nu, det er jeg ikke klar over.
Jeg ringer som privatperson, der har fået tilsendt nogle sagsakter, som jeg har anmodet om. Og jeg får mulighed for at gennemse dem hos jer, Esbjerg politi.
Ja, okay. Så du har bedt om aktindsigt. Det er sådan, jeg skal forstå det.
Jamen, sagsakterne er sendt frem til jer.
Ja, det er sendt frem til os.
Ja, så jeg ringer sådan set bare for at aftale en tid, hvis man kan sige på den måde.
Ja, det er det. Og så du bor i det her område her.
Jeg bor i Esbjerg.
Jeg kan forstå det. Ja, okay. Ja, jamen, det kræver jo lige, at du forklarer dig, sådan til at jeg kan sætte ind i et eller andet perspektiv.
Jo, men det kunne jo godt, siden de gav dit navn, så kunne det jo godt være, at du var informeret omkring, at de her sagsakter, de er blevet sendt til dig. Det må man jo umiddelbart gå ud fra, siden de giver mig dit navn, ikke?
Men som jeg forklarede allerede, nu har jeg ikke været på arbejde i nogle dage.
Nej.
Jeg er ikke bekendt med, at jeg har modtaget, så det er derfor, jeg er nødt til at spørge, som jeg gør.
Jo, men det er også fint nok, altså bare vi kommer frem til en løsning, ikke?
Ja.
Men...
Ved du hvad, hvis du giver mig et telefonnummer, så skal jeg prøve at finde en, der kan hjælpe dig.
Okay. As you just heard the chief prosecutor say that he would find someone in the prosecutor's office to help me out because he supposedly wasn't there. So I waited 2 days, but no one ever phoned me back. I therefore made further inquiries to South Jutland Police on the 23rd of May 2013, which will be the next phone call that you're going to be able to hear, where I kept getting passed around to different people within the South Jutland Police Department. And not only that, the phone was being hung up on me twice. But I stayed persistent, and this is what I got out of it. I'm going to present some of the clearest video footage that I was able to capture while I was viewing these case documents on the 28th and the 29th of May 2013. Unfortunately, these documents are in Danish and cannot be translated because it's video footage, but it clearly authenticates my document's presentation, and every Danish-speaking person will be able to read some of these case files, and I will categorize each case file along the way.
Politiets omstilling.
Jeg skulle tale med anklagemyndigheden.
Ja, hvilken afdeling lover under?
Det ved jeg faktisk ikke.
Hvad drejer det sig lige ganske kort om?
Det drejer sig om nogle akter, der er blevet sendt fra en anden politikreds.
Nogle akter, der er blevet sendt fra en anden politikreds?
Mhm.
Altså, det er særagter, vi snakker om?
Sagsakter, ja.
Jeg vil lige prøve at stille ned i vores daglige sagsbehandler dernede. Hæng lige på.
Okay.
Politiets omstilling.
Jo, goddag. Jeg blev stillet videre til sagsbehandling lige før.
Sagsbehandling?
Ja, jeg ringede lige for få minutter siden. Det angående, der er blevet tilsendt nogle akter fra en anden politikreds, som jeg har fået en OK på.
Det er rigtigt. Det var vores daglige sagsbehandling, ja. Hvad skete der derovre?
Jamen, jeg ved ikke, der blev lagt på for jeres ende af.
Nå?
Men jeg tror alligevel, jeg skal snakke med anklagemyndigheden.
Ja, men det er jo en anklagemyndighed, der er nogle underafdelinger, og det er der, du kommer over i en af dem.
Nå, okay.
Som har med de der sager at gøre, men der var ikke nogen, der svarede.
Nej, der blev lagt på. Jeg har ikke andet navn end Thomsen, men han er ikke på arbejde.
Nej, han er også noget chefanklager.
Jo, men det er jo det navn, jeg har fået af den anden politikreds.
Okay.
Så hvis der er nogen på samme kontor som ham, vil det måske være behjælpeligt.
Ja, nu, han er lederen af hele afdelingen. Jeg ved faktisk ikke, om han... Jeg tror, han har sit eget kontor et eller andet sted.
Nå.
Lige præcis, hvad han sidder med, det ved jeg faktisk ikke.
Nej.
Skal lige se. Der var jo, hvornår er så tider. Det skulle altså være. Hvad siger du?
Jeg siger ikke noget.
Nå, det er mig selv, jeg kører lige pludselig, der bliver jeg forvirret. Nå, ved du hvad, jeg vil lige prøve et nummer derovre, hvis du kommer retur igen, så bliver jeg nødt til at prøve noget andet.
Okay, tak skal du have.
Penge det på en gang. Politiets omstilling.
Ja, der er samme problem igen.
Hvad er det så?
Nå, jeg ringede lige for lidt siden igen, anden gang, angående jeg skulle viderestilles til anklagemyndigheden.
Okay, du forsvandt ellers her, det tyder på, at du har gået igennem, men det er du ikke. Det var lige godt utroligt.
Jeg kan trække nu. Så jeg ved ikke, om der er et andet sted, du måske kan omstille mig til.
Jeg må prøve de andre derovre.
Ja, tak.
Du får sikkert at vide, at det ikke er en rigtig afdeling, men så må de lige hjælpe dig videre på vej, fordi jeg kan ikke gøre det bedre end det.
Nej, det må man håbe.
Jeg prøver en linter derovre.
Tak skal du have.
Anklagemyndighed Lose.
Ja, goddag, du taler med Steven Bell.
Ja.
Jeg ringer indgående, at jeg har fået tilsendt nogle sagsakter fra Nordjyllands politi.
Ja.
Hvad hedder det? Og jeg skulle komme og få et gennemsyn.
Ja.
Og det ville jeg godt have arrangeret.
Har du ringet før?
Ja.
I samme
Ja. De skulle være blevet sendt i fredags.
Ja. Må jeg lige bede om dit personnummer? Og du ringer via omstillingen nu her, ikke også?
Ja, hvad hedder det? Han kunne ikke rigtig... han vidste ikke lige helt, hvor han skulle sende mig hen.
Nej. Lige 2 sekunder. Hallo?
Ja.
Nu har jeg måske lokaliseret, hvor sagen skulle være gået hen.
Okay.
Så nu prøver jeg lige at stille over til en jurist i ledelsesstøtte, som hedder Janni Nør.
Hvor henne, siger du?
Jamen, bare et andet sted i huset her.
Jo, hvis der nu skulle ske et eller andet, så jeg ikke skal til at omstilles alle mulige steder hen, så jeg ved, hvor jeg lige er.
Ja, hun hedder Janni Nør.
Janni Nør, okay.
Ja.
Tak skal du have.
Jeg prøver lige et øjeblik. Men bare ikke i øjeblikket.
Nå.
Der er nemlig mandfald i den afdeling, og hun var sådan lige den eneste. Jeg kan lige prøve at se om... Og ja, det er måske en anden. Jeg prøver lige, ellers så trækker jeg det tilbage igen. Øjeblik.
Okay.
Hallo?
Ja.
Ja, der er ikke mange, der gerne vil gennemføre det. Hvad er det for en sag, du...
Okay, jeg starter lige fra starten af. Det er nogle sagsakter, jeg har fået sendt fra Nordjyllands politi, Søren Gade, chefanklageren.
Ja.
Det er en række sagsakter fra en række forskellige år. De skulle have sendt i fredags.
Ja.
Jeg har snakket med personen, der har sendt dem for Aalborg anklagemyndighed, så de skulle meget gerne være der kan ikke. Men det er så lige med, hvor de er henne ved jer, det kan jeg jo selvfølgelig ikke vide.
Hver gang du ringer, bliver du stillet ned i anklagemyndigheden, og vi har ikke noget med aktindsigt at gøre.
Nej, det kan jeg heller ikke for, at Nordjyllands politi har sendt dem til en anklagemyndighed. Men siden at det står i det brev, og siden at det er den besked, jeg får at vide fra Nordjyllands politi, så er det det eneste anvisning, jeg ligesom kan følge.
Ja.
Og det er så det, jeg gør.
Ja, og jeg har prøvet at høre de 2, som tager imod post på andre steder, og de kan ikke erindre, at de har set sagen.
Og så vidt jeg kan forstå, så er det en rimelig stor stak sagsakter, så det er ikke noget, der lige bliver væk sådan lige.
Nej, det vil jeg da ikke håbe, det er.
Det kan jeg næsten ikke se, hvordan det skulle kunne lade sig gøre. Så jeg ved ikke lige, hvad jeg skal gøre her. Vil du have et journalsnummer?
Nej, fordi jeg har det faktisk. Jeg har fundet det, fordi jeg kan godt køre over i Nordjylland.
Okay.
Det har de jo sendt den 17.
Ja, det passer også med, at jeg modtog et brev den 17.
Ja.
Det skulle være sendt samme dag, så det er jo sendt den 16. Ikke? Det er dateret.
Ja, vi har ikke kørt den. Vi har ikke kørt det journalnummer ind i vores system. Altså, jeg ved simpelthen ikke, hvad jeg kan gøre.
Nej. Kan du fortælle mig, hvem der jeg så kan snakke med dig eventuelt, ved det?
Jamen altså, jeg vil jo prøve at stille dig om til min kollega, som står og åbner post andre steder fra. Fordi
ja.
Så kan det jo være, at der dæmmer et eller andet. Jo.
Jamen altså...
Den 17. Hvornår var det?
Altså den 17. det var jo lørdags. Nej. Nu har jeg ikke lige en kalender ham, det kan jeg lige tjekke.
Det har jeg. Ja, det var fredag før pinse.
Ja, fredag det er den 17. Og så har jeg modtaget brevet lørdagen, der er den 18.
Ja.
Hvilket de højst sandsynligt også har.
Og så har vi jo modtaget sagen i tirsdag.
Ja, men altså hvis I ikke har modtaget den 18. også, men så er den nok først blevet åbnet den tirsdagen der.
Den første åbnet der tirsdag den 21.
Ja. Men det er også 2 dage siden nu.
Ja. Lige et øjeblik. Lisette Nielsen.
Ja, goddag, du taler med Steven Bell.
Ja.
Jeg ringer angående nogle akter, vi skulle have modtaget.
Ja. Åse Wummelsdorf nede fra anklagemyndigheden, hun har lige snakket med en af vores jurister.
Ja.
Og de er ikke modtaget her endnu fra Nordjyllands politi.
Jamen, det kan jo ikke lade sig give sig, da de er blevet sendt den 17. Hvor jeg har modtaget et brev fra Nordjyllands politi om, at de er blevet sendt.
Ja.
Og så snakkede jeg så også med dem om tirsdagen der, hvor jeg ringede til jer første gang, hvor jeg snakkede med personen, der har været nede med dem personligt.
Har de været nede personligt med dem?
De har sendt dem personligt, altså det er en helt stak sagsakter.
Ja, altså det er sendt med posten.
Jo, men jeg snakkede med personen, der har sendt dem personligt.
Ja.
Og de blev sendt i fredag samtidig med, at jeg modtog mit brev lørdagen der.
Ja.
Så det kan jo næsten ikke lade sig give sig, at de ikke er endt nede ved jer jo.
Nej, det kommer jo an på, hvis det bliver sendt som B-post.
Jamen, de er bare blevet sendt som almindelig post, altså.
Ja, og vi har jo også haft helligdag i sidste
Jo, men altså, I sad brevet den 18. samme dag, som jeg modtog mit brev, siden der er lige langt, ikke?
Ja, men det har vi altså ikke.
Og hvis det ikke var, så skulle de jo gerne være modtaget ned ved i tirsdags den 21.
Ja.
Og det er jo nu 2 dage siden.
Ja.
Så posten har jo i alt haft 4 dage til at levere noget fra Aalborg til Esbjerg. Og så lang tid tager det jo ikke.
Nej, men de er altså ikke modtaget her i Esbjerg.
Nå. Hvad vil du have, at jeg skal gøre her?
Jamen, du bliver nødt til at væbne dig med tålmodighed, så indtil de dukker op.
Kan du ikke lidt forstå, hvad jeg mener med, at det er en umulighed, at noget skal tage så lang tid med Post Danmark?
Jo, men når ikke det er modtaget med postvæsenet her i Esbjerg, det kan jeg jo ligesom ikke gøre ved.
Nej, jamen det kan jeg godt høre, du ikke rigtig vil kendes ved, men jeg
jamen,
jeg
ikke vi har modtaget det.
Jamen jeg kan ikke helt forstå, hvordan at I ikke modtager noget, som Nordjyllands politi siger, at de har sendt. Altså, et eller andet sted er der et eller andet, der brister. Og det er jo ikke Post Danmark, der tager så lang tid om at sende noget, fordi det gør det jo aldrig.
Det skal jeg ikke kunne sige dig, om de gør. Nej. Jeg kan bare sige, at det er ikke modtaget her ved Syd- og Sønderjyllands politi.
Okay. Jamen altså, jeg kan jo kun ringe til Nordjyllands politi, og så give dem besked videre. Hvad hedder du, må jeg spørge?
Jeg hedder Suzette.
Hvad siger du?
Suzette
Nielsen. Og du arbejder ved anklagemyndigheden?
Nej, det gør jeg ikke. Jeg er i ledelsesstedet.
Ledelsessekretariatet?
Ja.
Okay. Men så ringer jeg til Nordjyllands politi, og så fortæller jeg, at de ikke har modtaget dem nogen som helst steder nede ved jer. Ja. Og så giver jeg dit navn selvfølgelig, og så må jeg høre, hvad de siger. Enten ringer de tilbage, eller så ringer jeg tilbage, eller... Ellers er der jo et problem, ikke? Fordi ellers er der en stakke statsjournaler, hvor folks personlige informationer er i, som man ikke ved, hvor er henne. Og det er jo et problem i sig selv, ikke?
Jo, det er det.
Så, jeg ved ikke, hvad I mener om det.
Det mener jeg sådan set ikke noget om andet, vi har ikke modtaget noget her hos os i Syd- og Sønderjyllands politi.
Okay. Jamen, jeg kan jo kun gøre det, som jeg lige har sagt, så.
Ja, det kan du.
Okay, tak skal du have.
Ja, det er godt.
Vel.
Vel igen.
Let's recap on the issues of them denying having received these case files. As you just heard, several people within South Jutland Police are outright lying about having received these files that you are able to view some of. And these people who are lying are complicit and essentially breaking the law, because what they are doing is preventing me from proving the truth through their own documentation. And what you will also notice is that I am not just talking to any police officer, I'm talking to people from the administration and senior prosecutor with clearances to look onto different police district databases, so therefore can confirm that North Jutland Police have sent the case files on the day that I'm saying. They can also see what the District General Attorney has written and received the letters regarding me and these issues. And that's without mentioning, they can also see the cases and investigations there has been on me through the years, and none of them has ever been about sex crimes. So it's not hard to sum up what is going on. But furthermore, let's take a look at what North Jutland Police had to say about South Jutland Police denying having received these files.
Det er omstilling Nordjyllands politi.
Jeg skulle tale med en Søren Gade.
Jeg skal prøve at se, om han er her stadigvæk. Øjeblik.
Tak.
Det er en opfølgelse.
Jo, goddag, du taler med Steven Bell.
Jo.
Jo, goddag. Jeg ringer igen på grund af de her sagsakter her.
Ja.
Nu har jeg haft et vældigt problem med at få opsporet dem simpelthen ved Syd- og Sønderjyllands politi. Og nu har jeg givet det flere dage her, og de påstår, at de ikke har modtaget dem.
Nå. Jamen det var da, altså jeg har sendt dem til Kirkegaden og et eller andet til Esbjerg.
Jo, men Kirkegade, du har vel sendt dem til politiet i Esbjerg?
Ja, det har jeg.
Okay, og de blev sendt i fredags?
Jeg har fået dem ned i fredags her, og jeg går ud fra, at de blev sendt i fredags, fordi de fik brev, hvornår var det?
Jeg fik brev lørdag der.
Altså, inden så var det, altså så tirsdag, onsdag, senest onsdag, ja, det torsdag i dag.
Jamen, under omstændigheder, så er de modtaget tirsdag.
Ja.
Det kan ikke lade sig give sig andet. Men altså, det er jo lidt af et problem, fordi der er ikke nogen, der ligesom... der er ikke nogen, ligesom, der vil være ved, at de har modtaget dem i hvert fald. Så enten er der et eller andet, der er gået fuldstændig galt, ellers ligger der en stak sagsakter et eller andet sted i Danmark med personfølsomme oplysninger i.
Ja. Men ved du hvad, jeg skal lige prøve at undersøge, og så hvis du ringer igen i morgen på et andet tidspunkt.
Ja.
Fordi Søren Gade, han er her ikke lige nu, og han er heller ikke i morgen, han er ikke godt på mandag. Jeg skal lige prøve at se, om jeg kan, fordi det er det 30, hvis de dukker op der.
Må jeg lige spørge dig om noget?
Ja.
Hvad nu I sender noget til politikreds? Hvad post sender I dem med?
Jamen det er vores postafsendelse. Vi har en mand, der plejer at gøre det, og jeg tror, han går ned på posthuset og afleverer den dernede.
Ja. Men I må jo sende sådan noget imellem hinanden. Det må jo sådan være en fast rutinemæssig ting, ikke?
Jo, men altså nu er det ikke så tit, vi sender noget til Esbjerg. Det er sådan mere, skal vi sige Aarhus og Holstebro. Det er jo sådan set dem, vi har tættest omgang med. Men altså, der er jo, ja, hvordan skal jeg forklare det? Vi har jo ikke sådan en politipatrulje, der ligger og rejser til Esbjerg.
Nej.
Den er jo kørt direkte med på Danmark.
Ja.
Og det er der nu med, altså nu har det været kendelse i mellemtiden.
Ja, nej, men det jeg som prøver på at fiske lidt efter, det var jo, I må jo ligesom, der må jo være en fast forsendelse, altså mellem politiet, ikke? Ligesom du forklarede med Aarhus og det der må, de må jo blive sendt i...
Vi putter det i en papkasse, så skriver vi til, altså med det her tilfælde til Sydøstjyllands politi.
Ja, jamen de må jo blive afsendt som politi til politi, det er det jeg prøver.
Ja, altså, men det går jo via Post Danmark.
Selvfølgelig. Okay. Jamen, jeg prøver bare på at forstå det her mysterium, altså.
Ja, men altså, som sagt, jeg har fundet dem frem, og jeg har skrevet det brev til dig, jeg har skrevet det brev til Silberg Thomsen i Esbjerg.
Ja.
Jeg har taget kopier af den statsadvokat i Viborg, og jeg har båret den der slags akter ned i vores postafsendelsesrum.
Ja.
Og skrevet på, altså selvfølgelig det der brev der, som er sendt til forskellige projekter. Prøv lige et øjeblik.
Ja.
Jeg kan lige huske journalnummer. Det er nummer 5100, og så er det 101.
Ja, 171.
Og så nummer 000, er det 18 eller er det 81?
På min, der står der 1812.
Der står 18 og 12. 1, 2, 3, og så 18 og så 12. Ja, det er bedre. Nu skal vi se. Brev til Stien, eller brev til Syd, og så Nordjyllands politi. Den 17. maj har det dateret.
Ja.
Og den 17. maj, hvornår har det været?
Det var i fredags.
Det var fredag. Jeg havde gået til Syd- og Sønderjyllands politi, Kirkegade 76, 6700 Esbjerg.
Ja.
Attention, chefanklager Sten Silberg Thomsen.
Ja.
Vedlagt fremsendes på ny samtlige akter vedrørende Stephen Allen Bell, Vesterhavsgade 93, stuen til venstre 6700 Lut Esbjerg.
Ja.
Der er statsadvokaten i Viborg igen og meddelt aktindsigt ved gennemsyn af sagsdokumenter. Jævnfører i den forbindelse vedlagt en kopi af brev af 22. februar 2013 fra statsadvokaten.
Ja.
Der henvises i øvrigt til telefonsamtaler, og jeg vedlægger til yderligere orientering en kopi af min skrivelse til Stephen Allen Bell. Så vi ved altså også godt, at vi har skrevet til dig, Daniel.
Yeah. Okay. As you just heard, there is plenty of confirmation, and there is also a great deal of contradiction, and more importantly, the diversion games, trying to shift the light onto me as if I thought North Jutland Police would deliver case files personally. That is an undermining trick and an assault on my intelligence, which was implemented by Suzette from the administration of South Jutland Police and followed through by Anne from the Prosecutor's Office of North Jutland Police. So either they are getting the same orders from you-know-whom, or the two police districts are conspiring against me. I will leave that one up to you. The next clip you will see is from the 27th of May 2013, 10 days after I received my letter, and 6 days after they backtracked to officially say that they have received the letter on the 21st of May 2013, where the explanation for this was that they were sent to the Chief Prosecutor Sten Silberg Thomsen, whom I spoke to on the 21st of May, and if you recall him saying that he would find someone that could help me out, which never happened, and furthermore the other conversations that I have had with people from South Jutland Police, all denying having received these files. So their explanation for their lies and stonewalling is, as you will witness, absolutely pathetic and would be useless in a court of law.
Ja, vi prøver han skrev til at vi vil gå på det. Det er Henning. Hej. Har du nogle sager til aktindsigt liggende, der skulle være kommet fra Aalborg? På en studie eller en bæl? Okay, så det er der, han lægger på. Nu står han nemlig. Jamen, hvad siger du, Paul Fischer? Jeg prøver det. Godt, ja. Tak for hjælpen. Hej.
Hende ned fra inspektionen. Goddag. Jeg har fået at vide, at du skal have nogle akter fra Nordjylland. Fra en skive eller en bælle. Til noget aktindsigt. Eller i hvad? Nå. Okay, han står hernede. Ja. Det er i orden. Tak. Hej. Så kommer der lige...
Må de bede om brevet der?
Ja, selvfølgelig. Lige vil lade dem det.
Det er mig. Hvad hedder du?
Jeg hedder Poul Fischer, politiefætter.
Goddag. Jo. Nå, de er kommet nu?
Ja.
Okay. Jamen, hvad hedder det? Så skal jeg jo lige have, hvad hedder det? Jeg har ikke tid nu.
Har du ikke tid nu?
Jamen, jeg har jo ikke... nu har jeg jo siddet og prøvet at få de her akter for en uge.
Ja.
Så nu tænker jeg, nu tager jeg herned. Og så ser jeg, om de er kommet.
Okay.
Og så hvis de ikke er, så må jeg jo tage kontakt til Nordjyllands politi igen.
Ja, må de er kommet den... Ja, de er kommet i sidste uge, 21.
Den 21.
Ja.
Okay. Men det er bare fordi, jeg...
Du skulle have fået brev fra statsadvokaten i Viborg, ikke?
Nej. Men...
Har du fået brev? Nej, helt tilbage i februar. Jeg ved ikke, altså jeg kender overhovedet ikke sagen.
Okay. Nej, men jeg snakkede med jer den 21.
fuldmægtigt.
Jeg snakkede med jer den 21. Der var de her ikke. Der har været et helt mysterium, hvor de her de akter, de er henne.
Ja,
derfor...
Ja, men det kan jeg godt fortælle dig, hvorfor. Det er fordi, de er selv fra den ene chefsanklager til den anden chefsanklager.
Ja.
Og når vi går direkte til chefsanklager, så er jeg godt på det. Det er sikkert, han er det lige den dag.
Jamen ham har jeg også snakket med den 21. Sten Silberg Thomsen.
Ja. Modtaget 21. maj.
Ja.
Det er ikke sikkert, at han så læst sin post, da han snakkede med dig. Jeg ved det ikke.
Nå, men jeg ved det heller ikke. Jeg kan kun følge de anvisninger jeg får. Men jeg...
Jeg ved hvad? Så vil jeg foreslå dig, når du har tid.
Ja.
Og slet ikke gå for lang tid, fordi det er jo ikke vores akter, det er noget, der er sagt. Men prøv at ringe til, hun er her i morgen over middag.
Jamen altså, jeg kan jo sagtens komme her forbi i morgen. Altså, den her stak, den kan man jo ikke bare lige på 0,5. Ja.
Nej, det kan man nemlig ikke, men sagen er, at jeg skulle gerne bede nogen om læse. Og
Men man har lov at gennemse faktisk privat.
Det er sådan, at vi skal stå og læse over skulderen på det, men vi skal sikre os ikke.
Jo, jeg må ikke tage kopier eller noget, eller må heller ikke tage sagsakter med ud, men selvfølgelig har man lov at sidde i fred og ro.
Du har lov til at sidde i fred og ro.
Ja, det er heller ikke det, der er heller ikke det, der er problemet. Men jeg vil gerne bestille en tid til i morgen, hvor jeg kan komme og sætte dem igennem så.
Ja, hvad siger du til i morgen kl. 13?
Fint. Så møder jeg bare op hernede. Så nævner jeg bare dit navn. Tak skal du have.
Det er godt.
Ja.
As you just saw here, they have been very ignorant and arrogant, thinking that they can say anything at the point in time where they want to stonewall me, but when the different COINTELPRO methods don't work and they don't succeed, then they have explanation problems, which means that their lies reveal themselves, and that is something that happens continuously. And if you notice that he stressed that these journals were not South Jutland police's, and I had to hurry up reading them all through because they needed to be sent back. That excuse has also revealed itself, as it has taken South Jutland Police 2 months to send them back to North Jutland Police, And this is an example of how pathetic this whole thing is. And it's very easy to gather that the police here in Denmark have an interest in not letting me use my constitutional rights to prove my innocence to the world. And that is something that proves the way they have built up their justification, fabrications, by using information elements from real life given situations which has been in their possession. So that explains why they have come up with so many different lies and ridiculous excuses. And that fact is coming more to light, and people are starting to understand their methods. So now I think it's a good time to take a closer look at how it is possible to make these virtual fabrications. Most of the technology used for these kinds of fabrications are still classified and are only used by the military and intelligence agencies. But there are commercial technologies with some of the same capabilities. So I will try my best to give you my knowledge and understanding of these technologies as a victim who these technologies are used against. The best way of understanding is if you divide it into subgroups, input and output. These are the two main fundamental structures. Everything that goes into the brain and everything that is censored from the brain. This is known as biofeedback. Because for the people who are exploiting these technologies want to know what has the most effect. And the only way for them to know this is by having this feedback loop. And as you probably know, feedback can be many things, but it is always a reaction or an expression from something that has been presented for you. The same goes whether it's internally or externally. I will focus on the internally more than the externally, even though one can't exist without the other. Because the way these technological capabilities are being utilized is to censor the neurological activity in the brain, by sending information to specific parts of the brain and body to cause an effect. Whether it is sight or sound or any of the other 5 senses is up to the person using the system and for what purpose it is being used for. In my case, it's being used to cause damage in a variety of different ways, and maybe more importantly to deceive and trick you, the viewer. So it's very important to have an understanding of how this is possible to influence and mould so many people's understandings across the globe in so many different languages and cultures. How is this possible, you might ask yourself? It is possible because the majority of the world's populations have absolutely no idea how this global weapon system works. These technologies have been in the workings for decades and have now been so refined that it's possible to do the impossible on a global scale. So let's take a look at some of the specific capabilities. I will start off with one of the most known and essentially the one being utilized the most. And that one is known as synthetic telepathy or radio frequency effect, which has been declassified to a certain extent and is also used commercially in different applications, where it's possible to create undetectable sounds and thoughts by normal ways of hearing. This works by generating an electrical impulse which is mimicking our own biological impulse system for speech and or a thought. That way our brain and nervous system will interpret the signal as a biological impulse, and we will automatically decode the information into meaning. These generated electrical impulses can be sent a variety of different ways, but in this instance they mostly project the same signal across the globe at the same time, at the speed of light. And the mechanisms for this is an explanation on its own altogether, which is highly classified. I only know the basics of this phenomenon. The world is covered by ionospheric layers, and these layers consist of ions and free electrons due to the sun's radiation, and each layer has a positive and negative effects on radio frequency. This is being utilized using specific layers as reflectors for propagation of the signal, which means that they can use the ionosphere for broader and wider signal propagation, and therefore target the world as a whole rather than specific regions or persons. And this is being done using an array of satellites and or antennas which are placed specific parts of the world. One of these places is in Canada, and the most people have heard of HARP, which is used for weather modification amongst other things. Same kind of system is being used as a weapons system for these kinds of technologies that I'm speaking of. And that brings us to the virtual reality fabrication capability. This has the same principles as synthetic telepathy, mimicking our own impulse system with synthetic impulses, which is coded information in this form, but also gets decoded when it enters our brain into visual information that we understand in our brain without actually seeing the information, as you do when you look at something. To get the best understanding of this, you also have to divide it into two subgroups. The first one being creating the virtual storyline. This is done by using computer programs mainly and other special effects screens, as they do in blockbuster movies, designing their characters and the storyline in a simulated fashion. This will obviously be done by using the characteristics of the given people and places that they want to create a fabrication of. And these characteristics they can get from a whole variety of places, and this is where the elements come into play while creating their storylines, so they have some authenticity in their virtual fabrications. And as you just saw earlier, there was a clip of Tupac, which was a 3D hologram projection from 2012 at Coachella, made by an English firm called Musion. They have created several of these 3D holographic projections as spitting images of the real life persons, and many other special effects. And this technology is available commercially, so if you think of what has not yet been commercialized, then you start having understanding of what is possible. I have taken some of the most extraordinary clips from this company and Digital Domains Productions publications together in a short video to give you understanding of the otherwise impossible.
The crowd went insane. What was this illusion? It looked, moved, and sounded exactly like Tupac. It was a virtual performer, an incredibly realistic computer-generated likeness of Tupac, exquisitely crafted in the man's image. Headlines changed from "Did you see it?" to "What does this mean?" in worlds as diverse as music and performance, technology, intellectual property, and ethics. The door was opened. When virtual Tupac grabbed the spotlight at Coachella, he took a step for virtual performers as a new form of entertainment on the world stage.
What? It's quite expensive to set up at the moment, isn't it?
It's a business proposition, but as we get more and more into the market, potentially you could see this in your home.
Really?
Yeah.
So what, instead of a TV?
Instead of a TV, you would see a version. Can you remember the old Arnold Schwarzenegger film where Sharon Stone was the hologram in his house? A version of that. But it's taking communication to the next level, really. That's where we're going to go with it.
And could you do it on a live basis? In other words, could we have a situation where you are talking to us in a live interview, but you would actually be somewhere else?
That's absolutely right. We can already do that. We've been doing that for a couple of years. So for you guys doing your interviews, instead of talking to a screen when Sian's doing her weather broadcast, we could make it appear that she was standing next to you in the studio.
How much would that cost currently?
How long is a piece of string? It's commercially available.
As you've just been able to see, it's possible to create fictitious moving characters of given people, even though they have been dead for a long time. And what you also heard was the director of Musion say that they can do live projections, and they were aiming for putting this in your home instead of the television as a new tool for communicating. So when you are aware of this knowledge and these capabilities, then it's not so hard to imagine that intelligence services and the military can weaponize these technologies and merge them with other technologies for a malicious intent. So let's think of it this way. They have their virtual movie fabrication, which leave them two possibilities. They can choose to send it out over normal means, meaning internet or TV satellite signal, or they can merge and combine their virtual movie fabrication into the neurological technology, which gives them many more options to use the fabrication more as a tool than just a specifically created virtual movie, because here on this level they can use all their other capabilities in combination with the virtual fabrication. As an example, they can comment using synthetic telepathy while they are playing the movie, and all the other capabilities to cause other biological effects. So how is this done? This is also a long and complicated process. They have back in 1989 declared that they have deciphered the human brain, which therefore gives them the possibility to read and mimic and or copy our biological signatures. These biological signatures are electrical impulses with different frequencies, with complex variations for different purposes, and all humans have the same system, only with slight variations to one another. Therefore, deciphering one brain is a key to understanding everyone's brain and nervous system. This way, they are able to convert our five senses into electrical impulses that we will perceive as our own, meaning whatever they wish you to see, hear, feel, smell. That's how they are able to have the it concept to be so successful over so many different language and culture barriers, because electrical impulses are a universal language. So they are converting the visual information from the fabrication into electrical impulses that we perceive in our brain without actually seeing the virtual movie, but as a mental picture instead.
Neuroscience. We now understand more about the brain and how the language of the brain works, and just enough that we can start having conversations with it, direct conversations to help people. The second major advance is technology. We can now make sensors and low-power electronic circuits that we can actually go ahead and medically implant directly in the brain. Well, we might be able to help if we could eavesdrop in on the brain activity where presumably in his brain he still wishes to move. He still intends and desires to move. So if we could pick up those signals and simply decode them, we could drive prosthetic arms or stimulate his paralyzed muscles, or move a computer cursor on a screen so we could type out messages just like many of you are doing on laptops and touchpads and computers right now. Okay? What the future potential might be, we believe the sky is the limit. Thank you.
This brings us to the next capabilities, live surveillance with input functions. This is something that also correlates with the other capabilities. And if I start off explaining this with something most of us have witnessed ourselves on a regular basis, then it's much easier to comprehend. They have, as you know, publicized this experimentation and weapon system introduction to the world, and therefore most of what they do is viewable for all of you. This is obviously done purposely as the introduction of this system, so they can manufacture new and unpredictable threats as a justifying tool. But to get into detail, you need to understand how it's possible for them to create these live feeds of not only what I see and say or feel, but also what they send as an input. And that also varies depending on the situation. What they do is censor my neurological activity, which is picked up by several neural prostheses and sent back via the energy source as biofeedback, where the information is processed and redistributed through the system, which propagates on a global scale. Thereby you are able to pick it up and your brain automatically processes the coded information into meaning, as if it was your own biological impulses telling you something. And that is the exact same process when they send an input of any kind. The only difference is that it is a copy. It's a synthetically generated impulse, because it's most likely computer generated. As I mentioned earlier, a copy of a human impulse, but our system cannot tell the difference in great enough extent that we can block them out, because the frequencies are in human range, and we automatically interpret the given signal. Another thing worth mentioning in this context is, when they send something, it is more a direct route which will be measurable with the right equipment. Which leads me to another capability that they use on a local and regional base, and this is what I call the vibrational sounds, which utilizes ultrasonics as carrier waves, near hearing range. This way of communicating they use mainly as a backup to the other capabilities, and as a tool for guiding and advising people what to do in their harassment campaigns. They communicate with this capability in Danish. I'm not sure if these ultrasonic sound communications are translated into other languages, because if it is, then they have to use the electromagnetic signaling system, because ultrasonic cannot travel as vast distances as electromagnetics can. Translating continuous communications from one signaling system to another would be difficult and time-consuming, and by not translating these communications give them an advantage which leaves the rest of the world unaware of what is being said and dictated through this means of communicating to the general public here in Denmark. So therefore they can get away with more atrocities without drawing major attention to themselves from the rest of the world, because the nature of these communications are so diabolical and obvious that it will cause public outcry, and that would ruin international relationships with other countries, ultimately giving a much clearer picture of what is really going on, instead of this false and fabricated perception of what the it concept really is for. And that would be something that people would be very bothered and upset over, and rightly so, because people around the world are being lied to and cheated on a daily basis. Because the true reasons for this concept has nothing to do with what you're being told by your governments, and has everything to do with what you're not being told. And that is, these technologies and this system is being introduced into the civilian world under false pretenses, as a new tool for surveillance and control, which will be so much more intrusive and disturbing than the revelations that Mr. Snowden has made us aware of. Think of PRISM and X-Keyscore as they are, but with the same capabilities as I have mentioned some of here. This is the perfect surveillance and weapon system technology. This system is being more and more accepted, and the whole surveillance state issues are being normalized to such an extent that these Stasi-like methods are accepted. These facts is something that there needs to be a proper public debate about, and there can be no question in my mind that all this needs to be reversed before it's too late.
The Stasi would be drooling if they had access to NSA technology, because it makes it so much easier. You know what a pain it is to build all these paper records? Now it's electronic. And how much easier is it if I can make secret agreements with these companies and get pipeline access to all that information? Guess what that gives me the ability to do? Remember, and I haven't asked you the other question, by the way, because it's one of the phenomenal government memes, propaganda meme, right? Well, hey, it doesn't matter anyways, so even if we get caught doing this, if you have nothing to hide, what are you worried about? You don't get to choose. The government gets to choose. And I'm exhibit number 1 with what happens if they don't have the evidence, they make it up. If they don't have the evidence, they recast it in secret. And they place you in a box because they can. They can lie about even your own life. They can take transaction information and turn it into something else. They can say you made this phone call to associate with somebody else. Or especially if they don't like you, they're going to find something That's why I asked you early on. They'll find something that is embarrassing, that you wouldn't want to have known to others, or just the fact that you made certain kinds of purchases or viewed certain Netflix movies.
As you just heard, Thomas Drake, a former senior executive of the NSA, say if they don't have any evidence to persecute you legally, then they make it up, as well as using private information out of context as a means to fabricate cases against you in secret, or to discredit you, or both. So hearing this information from a former NSA employee gives you a pretty clear picture of what intelligence services are capable of. And most likely these are not uncommon methods for high profile cases, because anyone who has any knowledge of the intelligence services methods and capabilities are national security threats, even though they are the ones doing the wrongdoings, and in my case trying to set me up as a paedophile. I will now present hard copies of the elements that they have taken out of official journals and court judgments to use as information elements in their self-made fabrications, which they are showing to the world for justifying the it concept. I will start off from year 2003, and all the hard copies will be translated into English. As you saw earlier in this document's presentation, that the police had a suspicion to me for the attempted theft of a car in May 2002, and I was wanted for questioning, but because I had moved to England, I was nowhere to be found in Denmark, so the Sun Garden had coordinated a plea agreement, which you will be able to see on my criminal record from year 2007, where I was to be fined 1,000 kroner. So the next run-in with the police and court was from a fight I had with another student at the school home where I was staying, from approximately 1st of August 2003 until the 1st of March 2004. This fight occurred on the 1st of September 2003, which there were witnesses who saw this fight, and one of these witnesses' name is Daniela, and this is a key element that they have used besides the school home and the date and year. They have used these elements as building blocks for their fabrications, so they have some authenticity as to where I was at the time, relations with other people, and occupation. And when you look at this from the outside, without looking deeper into the matters, then I suppose it looks genuine from the outside. But it's not. It is as fabricated as it could be. And the only way of finding these things out is by having the necessary documents to prove this, which I have in my possession now, which you are able to see as well. You saw the witness Daniela, who supposedly had been a witness of not only one crime, but 2 crimes. The second one being their accusations of some sort of sex crime, which they have been showing as a movie where this crime supposedly has happened. But matter of fact is that they are creating these virtual fabrications with real life elements of real situation, which I have been convicted for on the 15th of December 2003. Nothing to do with sex crimes in any way, shape or form, but a judgment of simple battery. So knowing this method of building cases by using elements of real situations, by changing the given situation and facts to something completely and utterly different, to justify the otherwise unjustifiable in such a profound way that they have the world's attention and belief and support, over something that they have designed and created into virtual movies as justifiable evidence for the existence of the it concept, which is a global plan being rolled out in plain sight. Now I will go through more of these elements used in their fabrications. Year 2007 is the next year that I can say with certainty that they have taken given facts and situations out of, to replace them with accusations of sex crimes. But because I don't get made aware of the accusations more than the title, I have to gather my knowledge from so many different sources who have regurgitated bits and pieces from their fabrications in the different harassment campaigns. And these sources are far from reliable and full of disinformation. So I will show different documentation that you probably will be able to piece together better than I can. and this way you will also be able to see for yourself that the method that I have described and shown you in detail is the method that they have used all the way through the IT concept. I started off year 2007 with being accused of battery. This accusation turned into a court ruling where I was convicted for simple battery in recidivism, even though I was not even in the same town at the time of the crime, where I have several witnesses who were with me at the time of the crime who testified on my behalf. But as I had previous convictions for the same crime and I was a criminal, they judged me guilty, and I was sentenced to 3 months in prison. So looking at the details of this court ruling, you see that there are many witnesses on both sides of the story, and these witnesses on my side are all old friends of mine who come from a different area in the country than where I was living at this time of my life, from August 2003 until summer of 2009, where I moved to England from Aalborg. What the fraudulent cunts have done is focusing on regions and towns where I have lived to spread the most intense propaganda to cut me off from the people I know in my life who could have supported me and backed me up in the truth. But because of the intense and continuous propaganda, which is killing my personal character, people have become confused and skeptic to who I am, and obviously they have their doubts. This has been the whole purpose of these kinds of psyops, to turn friends into story cooperators and collaborators, so then they again have some authenticity in their storylines. This you may be able to puzzle together with the documents that you can see. What you can also notice is, on the other side of the witness pool, is that one of the witnesses in her testimony says that she has seen me on several other occasions, even though I have no clue to who this person is. This is something that they potentially could have used in their fabrications, using this person's testimony in one of their virtual movie fabrications, especially knowing that I have no clue to who this person is. Gives them much more leverage to make anything up using the information detail that you can see here. What you can also see in this court ruling is that I was also charged with stealing a bicycle and having 2 grams of hash for personal use, which I pleaded guilty to. But the point to this is, the element that they have also used is from the story that I have told the police when they stopped me, and that story sounded that I had borrowed the bike from a girl that I said I knew, whose name is Mette from Aalborg East, which was obviously a lie that I made up to the police. They have used this in their fabrications and commentary in completely other contexts. This way they make up their lies and turn them into fabricated movies, using the technology described earlier. This covers the court ruling and the judgment from 2007. So let's move on to 2008, where they have done something similar, used an acquaintance who has testified against me in another violence case from October 2008, where I was also convicted for battery in recidivism, sentenced to 4 months in prison. This acquaintance testimony was used in a completely other context to the actual case, where they have used this person's name and characteristics in one of their virtual fabrications, which they showed in 2011 and 2012, where they in this fabrication showed me and this acquaintance in a bus scene at something called Forbes Summerland, where there was some controversies leading up to a fight or a heated argument. I unfortunately do not have any more specifics on this virtual movie fabrication, so I therefore do not know what it was all about. But what I can tell you is how they have built up their storyline. They have used 2 situations from 2 different time periods with years in between, taken different elements out of each situation and mixed them together into a third completely fabricated story. The 2 real situations are from the violence case and a trip I was on with my ex-girlfriend to something called Forbes Summerland, and this was in the summer of 2006. So looking at this from the proper perspective, I can tell you that in 2006 I did not know this person who testified against me in 2008, and me and my ex-girlfriend drove to this Summerland, and there was no fights, no arguments or anything of that sort. But as thousands of people come to this Summerland every year, and many of these people come on buses from all around the country and other countries, as this is a tourist destination, then it's not highly unlikely that they would create a fabrication where there is a bus scene. And because my ex-girlfriend's name is also mentioned in this case from 2008, where there have been controversies involving her and the victim, who was friends with their acquaintance. So this way they have just taken some specific elements out of each situation and mixed them together in a storyline that benefits them and their accusations. So here you have a detailed explanation for how it's done. So moving on to the next part that I will show you is from 2009, February and March, where I have been stopped and charged for driving without a license in a Toyota Corolla. This car they have been saying that I have used in their accusations of sex crimes. I again have no clue to the details of where, when, how and so forth, but what I can tell you is that I have only had this car in my possession from February 2009 until the 11th of March 2009, where I handed over the keys to this car to the police, as I have no driving license and the car was not mine, but it was not stolen either, which you can also see in this report. So them saying I have supposedly used this Toyota Corolla in their accusations out of this time period is easily disputed and proven false just on its own, and that's without taking everything else into consideration. You see this way of building cases against a person using elements and given facts out of information that has been in their possession mainly, without ever charging or making the accused person aware of the different accusation, is almost a foolproof method for extrajudicial persecution, because they do not want to prosecute, but they want to be able to label me guilty for their accusations without there ever being a trial or an opportunity for me to fight them on a legal playing field. This way they can change and edit the circumstances as they see fit, and therefore are able to justify everything they do to the general public with fabrications of such horrific sorts that most people will go along with everything they say and do. And that's without mentioning all the different violations and abuses that I'm being subjected to from both my government and others and fellow citizens who are constantly trying to set me up. Here you have enough information that proves that they are far from right and so much more corrupt than you could ever imagine, and they are willing to do anything as long as they can get away with it. And this is not even all the information that I have in my possession, and I'm currently waiting for more journals and reports from the police, because they are still holding back some of the information that they have on me. I can say with certainty that much of this information I'm waiting for will prove far beyond a reasonable doubt that they have completely different motivations for choosing me than they have currently been saying. And hopefully I will be able to present this information to the world, so then you at least know that they are not acting in our best interest in any way, shape or form. They are in fact systematically lying to us, while they are introducing the technologies using the IT concept, along with the methods and techniques. I know that I'm far from an angel or a saint in any way, shape or form. I have done many bad things, but none of which are measurable to what I'm being accused, and at least I have the decency and the courage to say this honestly to the world. But as you know, they are doing everything in their power to have you believe that everything they say, do and show over the system I'm to be blamed for, as well as they are using government institutes to further their objectives, and that leaves me with a serious problem because if my government and its institutes are so corrupt as it has proven to be, then I never stand to have a fair or just system to bring these matters to, as they have been complicit. That's why it's so important to have a proper public debate about the IT concept and the true meaning of why this has been implemented, without all the lies and propaganda. Only the facts is what everyone should be looking at. It is definitely fair to say that they have been lying and cheating from day one to cover up the purpose and meaning of the introduction of this system and the technologies used in the IT concept, along with the methods and techniques that have become so normalized that no one seems to be bothered, even though everything that you see in this concept is inhumane and despicable and a serious threat for any free society, as it infringes on all our human and constitutional rights as individuals, and that fact is only becoming more apparent for every day that goes by. And I know many people have a mentality that can't comprehend the seriousness of this whole situation, who believe this won't affect them in any way, but that's just plain stupid. And anyone with a bit of common sense can see how this has already had serious effects on societies and set certain precedents around the Western world, which leaves us each individual with lesser freedoms and rights. That's another fact which also is becoming more serious for every day, that the establishments, are allowed to continue these kinds of surveillance and control programs. With no oversight, no accountability, impunity, no regard for human life, serving only in their own best interest, this is unacceptable and we should not stand for it any longer. I certainly won't, and I will do everything in my power to give you real facts and knowledge, so you have a chance to see things for what they really are, atrocities against humanity.
Banks are going bust, shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter, punks are running wild in the street, there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone.